Hello everyone, my name is Taylor McManus and I'm going to be presenting my textual analysis on organization ethics and communication as it relates to the Netflix documentary, The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. To give a quick rundown on what I will be discussing throughout my presentation, I will first be analyzing the case of Gabriel Fernandez and its influence on the organization involved, the Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services. Next, I will be analyzing components of organizational ethics, such as the good, and how the concept of dwelling place works in relation to organizational ethics. Finally, I will be discussing the ethical implications of communication ethics literacy and the recommendations I make based upon this. In May of 2013, police were called to the home of Pearl Fernandez and Asuario Aguirre to report that their son, Gabriel Fernandez, was not breathing. The paramedics who responded found him with broken ribs, a cracked skull, and BB pellets stuck in his body. It came out that over a period of 8 months, Gabriel was consistently abused by his caretakers and ultimately let down by the very system that was meant to protect him. After his death, criminal charges were brought up against the numerous social and DCFS workers who failed to notice the warning signs in time to save Gabriel. Now, this is when a domino effect within the organization occurs, starting with the lack of uniformity between each report submitted regarding Gabriel's well-being. The common theme shows a huge cultural imbalance within DCFS. A multitude of people submitted reports over concerns of Gabriel, including his teacher and a security guard. Ultimately, DCFS's lack of attention and swift action made them present themselves as a disorganized and uncaring organization. Therefore, it soon became evident that DCFS lacked sufficient resources, was extremely underfunded, and did not have enough staff to properly take on the influx of child abuse cases, all factors which hindered the effectiveness of the system and ultimately resulted in Gabriel's death. Every organization has their own definition of good. By referring to DCFS's website, their good is to promote child safety and well-being by partnering with communities to strengthen families, keep children at home whenever possible, and connecting them with stable, loving homes in times of need. Organizations should use their good to promote and protect a sense of dwelling. DCFS failed to protect Gabriel Fernandez, and because of their misaction, they deviated away from their ethical good. As we learned via our textbook, a dwelling place seeks to define what is good and what is not, and what is included and what is excluded in a dwelling. The failure of the dwelling place as it led to Gabriel's death can be explained through the lens of the settler. The settler is someone who has been with an organization for a significant period and takes for granted the long-term reality of the given organization. So in terms of Gabriel's death, the settlers are the Los Angeles DCFS supervisors Kevin Boom and Gregory Merritt, who failed to encourage the social workers on Gabriel's case to make good ethical decisions. When it comes to dwelling place within an organization's ethics, it is up to the organization itself to define their own right or just sense of good. This is done through the saying versus said model. The saying is the current living practices that manifest a given good, while the said refers to the public policies or stories of an organization. Both of these concepts worked hand in hand to protect and promote the good in dwelling. While I've defined DCFS's mission earlier, their said lies in that same statement, promoting the safety, well-being, and permanency of the children they strive to protect. These are organizational values and policies that keep them moving forward. Their saying are the practices they carry out every day, interviewing children, removing them from abusive situations, creating a plan to prevent more abusive situations, and so on. The saying and said can be viewed as the yin and yang of ethical communication. If an organization fails to uphold one, the other crumbles and causes misalignment in such organization and the good that they are meant to promote. As the documentary shows, there are a multitude of benefits for establishing a dwelling place in communication ethics as it strives to prevent wrongdoing or neglect. The most logical starting point is to prevent the failure of ethics from within DCFS, both in LA and as a whole. Dialogic learning is learning that occurs through group discussion. According to learning.org, dialogic learning theory is based on the concept that meaningful conversations or dialogue engages learning skills in critical thinking and develops questioning skills. It also assumes that learning is reinforced by participants learning to speak and speaking to learn. Based on this, DCFS should have sought to learn more about Gabriel's case rather than taking the information presented at face value, as this would have given more insight into the abuse Gabriel was suffering and given them resources to prevent more children from undergoing similar abuse. According to Ronald C. Arnett, taking communication ethics into a dialogic perspective requires meeting and understanding various communication contexts and applications. The following guidelines provide the first step towards communication ethics literacy: listening, attentiveness, dialogic negotiation, and temporal dialogic ethical competence. Dialogic ethics embraces learning and is attentive to historical movements while seeking to negotiate new possibilities. It is easy to see how this model should have been followed in Gabriel's case. The DCFS workers should have been more attentive to what was happening to Gabriel, listened without prejudice, and found new ways to assist and understand what was happening, and ultimately actively learn from these efforts. These are all factors that could have prevented a tragic death. Part of the reason this documentary is so influential is because it sheds light on the ethical disparities between DCFS and abused children such as Gabriel. Accountability should be a requiem for the workers involved, and it is quite disparaging to see that in June of 2020, amidst the outbreak of the pandemic, all charges were quietly dropped against each DCFS worker involved in this case. Although there may be consequences to social workers who fail to fulfill their duties, the appellate opinion read, the consequences do not include criminal liability for child abuse. By incorporating dialogic learning, this would help in our understanding of what the DCFS agents are going through and what they need to do better. Using dialogue communication ethics to pick up on nonverbal cues, such as extensive facial injuries, and providing training to DCFS workers to understand these cues. Furthermore, they can learn and not tell by evaluating what worked in assisting abused children and what did not. All these recommendations could help and make a real change for children in similar situations as Gabriel. Research geared towards redefining ethical organizational practices within DCFS on all levels would be ideal. I also propose that all, if not most, cases of death of abused children be re-examined to see if there was any ethical misalignment. These cases should be used as a framework by scholars to improve the organization's ethical practices and apply the necessary concepts of dwelling place to do so. If such research is successful, scholars could create a basic plan and framework for DCFS to follow under a new ethical practice. I hope you all enjoyed my textual analysis on the trials of Gabriel Fernandez, and I cannot wait to hear any feedback or comments you have regarding this case and the concepts that I have used.